And I'm going to borrow, I think I saw my old friend Terry Kawaja somewhere in the room. And he's always got a rule for his conferences that it's not us up here lecturing, it's a free-for-all. And I know enough friends out in the audience that we could shuffle the deck and you guys could come up here, we could sit there, and it'd be an equally good conversation. So don't be at all shy about jumping in, piling on. But really what we want to talk about is consumer attention and consumer trust even more broadly. And I think we all have been barraged by the stories about United Airlines recently. And this question of how do we go from fly the friendly skies to extreme customer rendition? But that's but in some ways they say, well, no, but we're not in the customer service business anymore, right? We're in the transportation business, you fill seats, we're going to revenue optimize. And conversely, the consumers are saying, no, we don't have brand loyalty per se. We just, we're shopping for the lowest price and we could argue that's happened in media, it's happened in advertising, it's happened in a lot of categories. And so I think kind of the central question for us to talk about is how do we sort of regain that relationship with the consumer? How do we not just get attention across multiple screens, but engagement and trust? And sort of, where are we as media people, marketers going? And sort of basically, how do we get in this mess? But, and so panel, it's a carefully curated panel, to use a term of art. To my immediate left is Jim Brady, and Jim's a buddy, but he was formerly digital editor at Washington Post, one of the early guys, Washington Post Online, AOL Online. He's the public editor for ESPN, kind of the ombudsman editor for ESPN, and is founder of Spirited Media, which is re-engaging, or really reinventing local media for a new generation in Philly, Pittsburgh, and now Denver via partnership with Kevin Ryan and Gordon Krovitz. To his left is Gordon McLeod. Gordon used to run digital for Time Inc., for the Wall Street Journal. He was the publisher of Newsday, which shockingly is America's 7th largest newspaper out on the island.
Why are you so shocked?
We'll get to that. Was president of Crux. And so he's done a number of investments and stuff. So he's got a really interesting background in terms of both really old media, new media, data and technology. Aki Spicer is from Chief Digital Officer of TBWA Chiat Day. And I'm an old school agency guy, so I still say Chiat Day with a lot of affection.
That's good.
And Jeremy Steinberg is from the Weather Channel and comes out of more of a digital media background and is now part of Big Blue, which is probably one of the most surprising acquisitions of the last few years. Yeah. It's didn't see that one coming at all. But Jim, let me start with you. Why does ESPN have a public editor? And what does that have to do with kind of how it relates to its readers?
Well, I think it just gives them a pathway into ESPN. People have said, the Washington Post doesn't have an ombudsman anymore. A lot of big organizations have gotten rid of them. But ESPN's kept it, New York Times has kept it, NPR, PBS, and I think it's because even though they can all get lectured on social media or told every day on social media what they're doing right or doing wrong, the people who are sending those notes don't necessarily have any access to executives inside that company. And I think it gives them a connection to the brand when they get a response from somebody who said, hey, I hear your complaint, I'm listening to you. And I think most people who've done this job before find they're always surprised. Everybody is surprised when they get an answer. I'll get a 20-paragraph thing complaining about SportsCenter, and I'll send a reply back, and the immediate response is, I can't believe anybody's reading these, which leads to the question of why did you write it? But that's sort of, but people, I think it's a connection. It makes them feel like they're talking to somebody inside, which I think is far different than lobbing comments from social media, and I think it allows them to get answers to questions that are legitimately frustrating them.
Interesting. And for kind of anybody, how has that changed over time? Because, back, God forbid, to print days, but then more recently to sort of web days, how has the relationship with readers or consumers evolved? Is it closer, further?
I think I've spent a lot of time on the financial side, and then the election woke up a lot of people to this issue of trust. And for a long time, TV networks had call-in numbers, newspapers had letters to the editor. We did a lot of things to try and encourage trust and hoping that would work for us. I guess the problem now, or the irony now is, I think trust is probably at one of its lower points, yet CNN ratings are up, Atlantic, New York Times subscriptions are up. There's more consumption going on now than ever. So do we need that trust, or maybe it's the wrong kind of trust? Maybe the trust that Jim might talk about later around having a relationship with the reader is better than some of these artifices of letters to the editor or having an ombudsman. Maybe those just aren't connecting anymore.
Aki, how do you, for an agency, how does agencies think about, I'll say, trust in media, engagement with the consumer, on behalf of your clients?
Yeah, I mean, classically, agencies, particularly on the creative side where you make ideas, we've always had a delicate, relationship with trust. Can you believe what is being said? I think these days, from my digital side, lean into making something that people want. Creatively, a lot of our creatives like to make stunts or things that get attention, but we've leaned more into audience segmentation, context and comms planning, showing up at the right time and being more relevant. For us in creativity, relevance is our sort of trust currency and trust. If you can be relevant at the right time, show up in the right context, talk to the right person, and now more than ever you can do that. The interruption now is invited, and it's something someone wants, because classically no one ever really liked interruptions on their game, on their news.
Let me kind of argue with you
Yeah.
there for just a minute,
Yes, sir.
because it seems, and Gordon's accused me of being like Charlie Rose when I interview, but people speak fondly about TV ads.
Yeah.
For a long time, whether it was the McCann ads for Coke or the Leo Burnett ads, they say, oh yeah, I remember, like I said, Friendly Skies, Jolly Green Giant, I'd
Yeah.
like to teach the world to sing.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever loved a digital ad?
Yeah, but let me pause on the first supposition. I don't think people spoke fondly of TV ads. You spoke of a couple, you grew up with them, they hammered you long enough that you knew them very well. But let's be honest, we always walked out of the room when TV interrupted your important shows, and it was a trade-off. It was a devil's bargain. I want the show. This thing's going to interrupt me. You knew the time frame to walk out of the room and time to come back. Now more than ever, you have a way to avoid that bargain. That's now our challenge. But I don't think people ever loved TV ads. People never have loved ads. Once in a while, some great ones struck an emotional chord or struck an emotional context where it cut through. But let's be real, 80% of TV ads were just as meaningless as perhaps quite a lot of percent of any other kind of ads, call it digital ads today. So that's always been the challenge.
Interesting. And yet, Chiat Day in the old days did one of the best ads ever.
Indeed. I'm not going to say there haven't been some winners throughout our industry. I think that's what, as a strategist by trade, that's where chronically trying to mine for. Get more insights around customers and what audience want, what's on their minds. And again, I circle right back to relevance. What is relevant to whoever it is you're trying to talk to, a sports fan, a mom, a healthcare patient, whatever the people that you're trying to get at. It's mining for relevance. I think just now we just have this many more layers to get deeper. Before, and I grew up in the TV era also and became digital. Creatives today are amazed at just how much more you have to make to be relevant. We used to over-index on making one big thing and then drop it and launch it, our old language. Now you have to make perhaps 100 different things because there's 100 different contexts to be relevant. It might show up here, might show up this time, and so there's just that much more sort of a 3D chess that creatives now are forced to think through. Whereas before you didn't have to worry about these, you just had to slam one great joke, and express it very emotionally, and you pretty much were good. that's not enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Jeremy, how has life changed with regard, well, first of all, how does Weather think about this? But then also, now you're part of IBM, you're part of Watson,
Yeah.
what does the world look like in a blue world?
I could spend a long time talking about this. So first and foremost, just on the trust question, there really is nothing more important to us than trust, both consumers and our advertising partners. We literally just updated our whole company vision statement: instill confidence, drive decisions, propel the world. So instill confidence in our consumers. We have hundreds of millions of people who use our app. They opt in to be tracked everywhere they go because they want to know what the weather is and they want to know how to make decisions about their daily lives. We're probably arguably the second largest location platform on the planet besides Google Maps. And so with that comes a huge amount of trust. That also is a huge priority for IBM and how they deal with customers. Trust is what drives their business.
Is it fair to say IBM, I mean, you weren't in the room, but they
Yeah.
bought Weather because of the flow of data about consumers, not because they necessarily want to be in the media business?
Yeah, so it's actually a really interesting story because it didn't make sense on the surface. Why the heck would IBM buy Weather? It's a really interesting story, and there's three main reasons. The first is about 4 years ago, we knew that consumers would want the weather wherever they were, on a mobile phone. In order to do that, you literally have to forecast billions of locations every 15 minutes. It's actually a huge big data problem. So we built a cloud-based platform to ingest data from around the world, unstructured data. And now IBM is using that platform for Watson. So that's number one. Number two is when you have a cognitive system or artificial intelligence, it thrives on data. And so having weather and location data to help inform all business decisions was really important. And the third is using Watson to power our consumer properties and our advertising properties and products going forward. Because if Watson could work for arguably one of the largest IoT platforms on the planet, it could work for any business. So those are really the three sort of main
So what does that
reasons.
the third part, what does that look like, Watson powering the property?
Yeah, so personalization. And you actually can see it on the app now in certain instances where content is being curated based on Watson recommendations. And on the advertising side, it started with a product that we launched late last year called Watson Ads. We actually built Watson into advertising. We trained Watson to understand a brand so that a consumer could ask a question and get a response in real time, improves the consumer experience. And I think that goes into sort of this conversation today about what's a memorable digital ad?
Yeah.
And so we think that cognition, artificial intelligence really is the best way to create experiences, which ultimately leads to better results, great feedback, and so on and so forth.
So Gordon, you sort of took a U-turn, right? You're doing digital data, and then you went back to killing trees out on Long Island. And so how did that, how does the world look, publishing a large metropolitan daily versus, kind of the digital world?
It's tough, as you might expect, tougher than I thought. I went in with a bag of digital tricks and thought I could really shake things up. And it's harder than that. What I came away with was that the trust, the connectivity to readers in the footprint of Long Island was the strongest I'd seen in all the places I'd worked. It's just the financial issues of the geography, the production process. As many of us have learned the hard way, there just isn't enough digital revenue. There aren't enough new ideas out there to keep those 300 people, in that newsroom and Newsday profitable. Yeah. And so facing some hard truths around where do you take that? How do you?
But talk for a minute about the subscription revenue side, because I think one of the things I thought, the canard in the digital world, nobody will pay for content.
Yeah.
But my sense was that, in fact, what you found was you had a group of people who would pay, sort of like the New York Times 2020 vision, but that actually was working for you.
Paid content is definitely coming back. I mean, partly because we all learned last year that Google and Facebook are getting most of the growth in ad dollars, which, we can talk about that, I'm sure, the rest of today. But the focus on paywalls, the focus on micropayments, the focus on having a stronger connection to your reader. Even Ben Baracus at SourcePoint is trying to start a conversation where if you read this, there should be a value exchange. What we found at Newsday in the course of less than 3 years, we priced based on willingness to pay. And people were, on the print side particularly, instead of trying to have the largest audience, you went after your best customers. We grew revenue 70% in 3 years by raising prices. And a lot of the print world has been seeing that. It, again, doesn't transfer to digital. You often bundle in a digital subscription as part of that package, so that's great. But demographically, you're getting the most revenue from your oldest, most loyal subscribers, so it's helping you in the day-to-day. It is not paving the way for what you're going to do next month and next year.
Yeah. So, Jim, you're doing a different version of that. So you've got 3 properties now aimed more at a millennial audience. What does local news look like, as you're seeing it?
Well, I think we talk about the news. We talk about trust in news a lot, but we tend to focus on the trust in the actual news itself, as opposed to the other kind of trust, which I think is important, which is the trust in the delivery, and the trust in the user experience, and the trust that the reader is going to come to your site, get what they want in an easy fashion. You can produce the best journalism in the world, but if you hide it behind a wave of pop-up ads and Google polls and all those things, it's that's a problem. So when I started this, we started it with the idea that ad revenue could not be the primary driver of revenue. It would be one source of revenue, but it was never meant to be the majority, and it hasn't been. And for us, it's been events. And so we're trying to take the relationship and build it offline, which is we're going to do, among the 3 sites we have, probably 115 events this year. And that averages out, to basically 2.5 a week, almost 1 per site per week. And the reason we're doing that is because we feel like, and you've seen this data in research about millennials, you see this phrase a lot that says they prefer experiences over possessions. So we're trying to give them experiences to deepen the connection of the brand. And we make the site really light touch. Don't do pop-ups, don't do pagination, don't do slideshows. Basically, you can get in and out and find what you want about Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, or Denver in 30 seconds, and we're fine with that. I mean, we kind of go with the idea that time well spent is more important than time spent, because I can get people back if they have an experience they like, and if I can monetize that experience offline, obviously also online, but primarily do it offline, that's even better. So we did 86% of our revenue in year 1 in events and 65% last year.
I mean, I'll build on that too. Creatively, I found on our side a lot of how we've moved forward with clients is more experiences. We have a lot of B2B clients. How do we build a brand experience in a trade show, for an example, and add value? It's not how do we make bigger signs that like pop out or something, but do a podcast live throughout a trade show that participants and attendees would want to listen to and subscribe to, and brought to you by a brand. There's a relevant connection, more content that people want to opt into, and so that if you pay to expose it, that's not a paid ad, that's paid exposure of something that people want. So we've experienced the same. More activations than typical ads, things that a sports client can use. It actually...
Talk about activate. Unpack that.
So for instance, Facebook would have released Facebook Live. One of our accounts is a sports store, retailer across all of Canada. And so we created this activation event that was called Chase the Gear. So it was a live race. If you could catch the runner, you get the free Adidas gear. And so 200 people showed up to chase the runner. Everybody got stuff. You use Facebook Live as a way to sort of track where he is somewhere in this park in the city. Using new technologies to bear to sort of bring a race, if you will. And so that would be increasingly what more clients are looking for as much as advertising. That's a thing in the world that generates content, that gets people participating, sharing outwardly. It gives you a long tail of content. It can play in stores. You just get more than just one well-crafted ad, particularly, to your point, in a digital context. A banner by itself, there's still that business too, but more ideas that play out as experiences in the world.
Interesting. And Jeremy, does weather do anything around experiences, or is it, like, how do you like, do you engage your consumers in the real world? I mean, other than we go outside and it's raining on us.
Yeah.
But how, like, I curse you if it's like, wait, no, you said it was going to be dry and it's raining.
We don't always get it right, but most of the time we do. And we saved the rain so everyone could make it in. We made that nice, right? Just for you, Kirk.
Decent W.
Yeah, I mean, look, consumer experience. Every time you open up the app, there's a background. It has imaging that connects you to the experience you're feeling. Most of the advertising that we sell, we call them branded backgrounds. So when you go to the app, they're weather triggered based on how a consumer feels in their location. So we've built products and services, like you've probably used our allergy tracker or cold and flu tracker. So that doesn't just take the conditions in your market. Allergy tracker looks at a variety of different conditions that could be impacting you, as well as pulling in sentiment data to understand what's going on around you. So almost everything that we do is really connected to how a consumer feels in their location. Because ultimately, I mean, that's what you want, is when you open up the app, you want to connect so that you can make a quick decision and go on with your life.
And how does that inform your conversations with advertisers? Like when you go to sell a program,
Yeah.
like how do you bridge the marketer over to that consumer?
So most of what we do is weather and location triggering. So from a weather perspective, we look at 30 different weather variables. We understand how a consumer feels in their location, because it's all relative. It's not absolute. And anybody who thinks that they're doing weather triggering by checking a box in an ad exchange is doing it wrong. Because the same conditions here feel very different in another place. And it's the variability that matters. And so connecting marketers to the weather conditions that drive the right behavior to drive sales ultimately drives a better outcome and better ROI. And so we've been in market with this product, Weather Effects, for a couple of years. We literally just announced a partnership with LiveRamp to now take that data outside of our property. And so what our marketers have said to me is, we love what you do, we just want to do it everywhere, and so we're starting to open that up. And then on the location front, we do a ton with insights. There's other companies that do it. We have a unbelievably valuable and very precise location data. Not just where somebody is, but all their movements. And so we're able to put together some really interesting perspectives on the difference in the pro consumer versus the everyday consumer for Lowe's and Home Depot. What are their behaviors? When are they most likely to go visit one of those retail locations? It actually happens to be directly correlated to a stop at a QSR restaurant. But they don't comparison shop.
Say that again. It's correlated to a stop at a QSR.
So the pro customer, which is highly sought after by Lowe's and Home Depot, there's a direct correlation to their visit to Lowe's and Home Depot based on a previous visit to a QSR. But they don't comparison shop on the same visit. So if you want to market, you should be marketing to them when they're at a QSR restaurant, because they're probably going to either go to Lowe's or Home Depot right after that. Whereas an everyday customer, they will actually comparison shop on the same trip. And so you have to think about, again, it comes down to how you should market and the strategies you use and how you harness the power of big data, but actually use it to advantage. Otherwise, it's just too much data and you can't do anything with it. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So, Aki, how do you go from sort of data over here, and you said, we want experiences, how do you sort of bridge clients and consumers from sort of data to experiences? Like, how does that thought process work?
Yeah, I mean, I live in this world of sort of a lot of our strategic approach over recent years has gotten from just the focus groups kind of data, which is very like, how do you like this? How do you like that? And more behavioral data, lots around social conversation merged with search insights, merged with, site behavior, merged with Simmons. A lot of our approach is creating an attitudinal point of view in the world and being able to know down by day parts how much they're engaging on, phone versus, increasingly data's telling us there's not as much TV as there used to be, or the context where it is depending, on your target. So that's very much a part of how we are, like it's baked into, we've also moved into very much a daily kind of an approach to strategy and data. Merging the kind of data you're speaking with culture, what's happening in the world, whether it be holidays or, one of our clients is Michelin. We use weather a lot, by the way, as a platform to be able to build trust, for different targets, whether it be value add based on weather and which tires. But it doesn't even have to be that direct. What kind of tips can we provide for car maintenance that's building trust over a 3-year life cycle, knowing that showing you a tire right now is not necessarily going to close. Data tells me at what point we moved into another tier of advertising that gets more to the closer. Talking a lot about bus safety. Again, culture says if this is back to school season, what kinds of value add can our advertising do beyond just straight, here's a new tire. So data is very much a part of how, I've always lived as the digital strategist. I think the new norm is what used to be called a digital strategist is now just the strategist. We've gotten rid of, what was called brand strategist. If you can't get into a lot of these kinds of weeds or direct it or mine insights from this and bring ideas out of it, or deliver ideas against it, then it's not enough to just be that kind of planner or strategist anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And Gordon, do you have any good stories out of when you were at Crux of sort of data working?
It's still evolving and changing. Early Crux, of course, you were building segments, talking about making data actionable. I mean, we've had a lot of data for a long time, but figuring out how to make it work, how to tell an ad server what to do, how to use PubMatic, right, as you're going out into exchanges and marketplaces, using the data. And the early Crux days were about building segments and making them actionable, and that was pretty good. These are sports fans. These are, people in Pittsburgh who might need an umbrella. But it was kind of devoid of context and personalization. You were lumping people together. It was a good start. I think a lot of, whether it's Watson or other machine learning types now, we are getting better at personalization and at predicting what people are going to want to read or watch or do. And to me, that's sort of next generation, at least from my Crux background, but also what everybody is thinking about, putting the right ad in front of somebody now. It's not, you can't just buy the audience. You have to know what device they're on, what the season is, what are their recent movements, and that's where we're going now. And in the news world, is that creepy or is that embodying more trust? I do think, editors still want to make their front page or their home page. But when you and I go to the Journal today, do we need the same homepage? Are we looking for the same things? So I think we now have the ability, and these guys are selling that way, and I think it's right. How do you predict what my experience should be? It should be different than Jim's. It should be different than yours. We're now able to do that.
Yeah. And so I'm getting the high sign that we're just about out of time. But let's close with a thought on sort of how do we stay, like there's a side where data and behavior can be like kind of creepy. This is Big Brother stalking you. And on the other hand, it's like, or it could be a more tailored, more personal, more relevant experience. How do we sort of stay on the right side of that? And just kind of, Jim, why don't you start with that?
Well, I mean, I guess we stay on the right side of it because we're not big enough or complex enough at this point to be that deep into data. So
Your consumer interaction is in the bar.
we can keep a list, we can keep a list of, the 3,000 people, whatever, in each city that we have a relationship with and what events they've attended and what target that way. But clearly we're trying to we're going to stay away from big data because we're not going to be big enough to need it. But I think that personal relationship is really key. I mean, I think we're trying to really take advantage of the fact that, for all the talk about local doesn't scale, local can't do this. I mean, our readers are all, or 70% of them are within striking range of us to get them physically into a room. So we're going to try to focus a lot of energy on on a lot smaller set of relationships than going after, sort of major data.
Nice. Gordon?
For me, it's, I think what a lot of people are talking about now, I've been a part of many waves of chasing digital ad revenue, and whether it was focusing on page views or clicks, related content, we did a number of things to chase ad dollars that I think really kind of undermine trust and undermine user experience on a lot of digital platforms. And some of it now I think we're coming back to, well, no, we need to engage them, we need to get their trust. Maybe now we can charge them more on a subscription level. Maybe now we don't need to put so many ads in front of them. So I think some of these hard realities are having better conversations. It's not about, all ad revenue at all costs. And I think it's going to make better relationships and experiences for your brands and your buyers. And I think it's a more compelling thing for somebody like Jeremy to sell than volume and scale and reach.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're getting back to what the consumer is actually interested in and getting them engaged.
Yeah. Aki?
From my side, creative advertising always, it was tenuous. Our sole role, you guys made things people wanted. Our job was to jump in front of it, and delay it for another 60 seconds. I feel now more than ever, trusting the big data is going to give us richer insights to give people what they want. I don't feel, it's not creepy if it's what you want. And so the more we can learn about insights and what people need and show up at the right times and contexts, I don't feel so worried about, people want things to come in if it's the right time and if you understand what I need. So I'm trusting in that core principle.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, it just comes down to the value you bring to consumer. If you're personalizing the experience and the consumer's getting value out of it, I think it reduces the creepy factor, but you have to go slowly. So, I think we do tons of experimentations to try to find the right balance between providing the right experience that provides the most value. But ultimately, I think if you provide the most value, it works.
Thank you very much.